Toy Story changed the animation world, and Ed Catmull put his dream out there to make it a reality. But without the likes of Walt Disney, George Lucas, and Steve Jobs, it never would have happened. Today's book is Creativity, Inc., written by the president and founder of Pixar, Ed Catmull. Before we get started, thanks for having me back and thanks for joining me today. If you've been on this self-development quest with me, go ahead and leave a like on this video so I know that you're here. And if you're new to the Self-Development Quest channel, well, consider subscribing. We'd love to have you on this journey with us. And with all that said, let's hop into Creativity, Inc. Creativity, Inc. is written from the unique perspective of Ed Catmull. Now, he's held a number of positions over the years, but what his entire life led to and what he is best known for is being the president and a founding member of Pixar, Inc. From a young age, Ed knew that he wanted to be an animator for Walt Disney and Disney Studios. Unfortunately, there was one problem. Ed could not draw. And he knew that the only way he could achieve his dream of becoming an animator is to do it through computer animation. And so throughout the book, Ed takes us on his lifelong journey of starting out and wanting to be a regular hand-drawn animator into eventually creating the first full-length feature film that is all 100% computer animated. Now, as Ed was going along this journey to create Toy Story in the computer animation industry, he starts out as a professor and then ends up with Lucasfilms, working with George Lucas on a lot of the special effects that you see in the Star Wars films. And eventually that little sector of Lucasfilms spins off and becomes Pixar. And because Ed's looking to do something groundbreaking and revolutionary, he's meeting a lot of people in the industry. He's bringing on great members of his team. He's expanding his skill set, and he's meeting really smart individuals along the way. George Lucas, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, who eventually becomes a part of Pixar as well. All of this leads up to the culmination of what I'd like to call the first half of the book, which is reads kind of like a biography or autobiography of Ed Catmull's life, where we start with him as a young child and he wants to be the first one to have a full-length computer animated film, and then it peaks right there at the end of that first half in 1995 with the release and the successful release of Toy Story. Now we get into the second half of the book, the reason I am sharing this book with you today. I did pick it up because I'm a Disney fan, but I'm sharing it with all of you because in the second half of the book, Ed gives us his knowledge and insight into the leadership skills that it took to build that amazing culture at Pixar. And so if you look at the title of the book, I'd consider the first half to be called Creativity, Inc., and the second half to be the overcoming of unforeseen forces that stand in the way of true inspiration. So with Ed's knowledge now upon us, that leads me to a part of the video that I'm going to be referring to as the ROR. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I really believe in books and I really believe in the knowledge that those books have to give us. And I like to think of every book you read as an investment in yourself. And your return on reading that is what I refer to as the ROR. That's your return on your investment for reading the book. So today I got 3 RORs for you, and let's get started with number 1. Number 1 is all about the team. Now, I do believe all of these RORs in Creativity, Inc. tie into each other very nicely, and I think they logically have to start with that it is all about the team. I'm sure some of you out there have heard the Steve Jobs quote that it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people and let them tell us what to do. And Lee Iacocca had a similar quote of, I hire brighter people than me and then I get out of the way. Now, it's not just about hiring smart people. It's not just about hiring talented people, and we'll get into that as we continue on. But it is about hiring a great team and making sure you've got great people in those positions that are going to contribute to the team. And if you've got a great team and you give them a mediocre idea, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to make that mediocre idea work and they're going to improve upon it, or they're going to scrap it all together and come up with a great idea. The reason you need a great team is because if you have a great idea, but you have a mediocre team or even a good team, they're not going to be able to expand or grow upon that idea. And it's just going to be a one note, flat. It's not going to resonate. It's not going to become as great as it could become. So if you want to get the best out of your team, you've got to put the best team possible together. Now, I know what some of you might be saying. You might say, well, it's not about the individual, though. You don't need a great individual. You need a great team. And sometimes you can have a collective good that is greater than each individual. Absolutely. But you want to have the best talent you can. However, they also have to follow a couple more rules. And that leads me to ROR number 2. Recognize mistakes are going to happen and don't be afraid to make them. We are all human. We all make mistakes and it isn't bad. And we need to get away from the stigma that every time we make a mistake that the world's going to end. That's how we learn. You know, you obviously we can't think back to it, but you look at babies and how do they learn to walk? They stand up, they fall down. They stand up, they fall down. They stand up, they take a step, they fall down. They stand up, they take 2 steps, they fall down. Do they give up and do we have grown adults just crawling around? No, you keep going, you keep trying, and eventually you get it. Watching a kid ride the bike. They start riding it, they fall down. They start riding it, they fall down. You put training wheels on so they can learn. Maybe not get hurt, wear a helmet, wear knee pads, elbow pads. But eventually you've got to make a few mistakes so you can correct and you can learn and grow from it. Now, when we talk about a team in a work setting, then you as the leader have to make sure that you have set up an environment where it's okay to make mistakes, where it's okay to take risk. New ideas can be experimented on and expressed. Feedback can be given on what is currently being done. New ways of executing certain tasks can be looked at and attempted. And in the end, as long as we learn what works and what doesn't work, and as long as we can constantly improve, then we are learning from our mistakes and we're going to be better for it. But it's learning from those mistakes, and it's that feedback portion that leads me to ROR number 3, candor. I think all of these RORs tie into each other nicely, and I think they've really built upon one another the whole way. You start out, you want a team, but you want a great team. Then you want to tell that team, hey, go out there, take risk, make mistakes. But then we get to candor, because the team and the individual has to be willing to accept that candor feedback. Once those mistakes have been made or those risks have been taken, and it may have worked, it may have not worked, but the team and the individual has to have enough candor to take and receive that feedback and must be willing to move on once it's received and know that it's not an attack on the individual or in that subgroup. It's just simply a way to focus on the team and on the goal to create the best possible result. And maybe it's not just candor, maybe it's respect as well. Maybe we have to respect ourselves and respect the team enough to be willing to take that feedback and willing to give that honest feedback, because in the end, you're trying to accomplish whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. And the whole team should be working in unison towards that goal and should be willing to think outside the box to make sure the outcome is the best possible outcome. Which all of this in the context of Creativity Inc. was to put out the best film possible. And that is going to lead me to bonus ROR number 4. For anybody out there that is a Disney fan, is an animation fan, is interested in movies and filmmaking, you are going to get a very unique insight into the creation of Pixar, which has become, in my opinion, and if you look at all the awards they've won, whoever puts on those award shows, one of the greatest studios out there, or at the very least, the greatest animation studio out there. So if you are a Disney fan, or if any of those topics interest you, I'd highly recommend picking up Creativity Inc. just because it's such a unique backstory, and there's so many behind the scenes things that happened at Pixar. Almost deleted Toy Story 2. The whole company almost went under before Toy Story ever came out. There are multiple movies they've had to scrap. The way certain movies that they've put out originally started, it's really neat. It's a lot of unique insights. So like I said, if you're a Disney fan, a Pixar fan, or if you just like that movie making behind the scenes information, check it out. It's definitely worth it. And if you have read Creativity Inc., are there any RORs I missed that you maybe have yourself? Did you take anything else away besides what I've given you, or besides the fact that this whole book was this amazing epic of one man's dream to create a completely new animation genre, and we actually got to see it or read about it from start to finish, and then learn about how after he accomplishes his life's work, what does he do to not suffer this huge letdown? And that's where he comes up with all this leadership information that's in the second half of the book. To wrap up, it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. Would I personally read it again? I can't say I would read it again. It is pretty thick. It was pretty long, but I would definitely listen to it on an audio book, and I would pull it out probably not just for fun, but if I'm looking for any kind of leadership insight, or if I'm ever in a position where I need to work with a creative team or come up with a creative idea, I definitely would not only reread it myself, but recommend it to everybody on that team. That's it for me. I'm so happy to be back with all of you. I've got one question before I go. What's your favorite Pixar movie? Look for my answer down in the comments section. I can't wait to read all of yours. And remember, on this self-development journey, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing.